Aquaculture Innovation Kitchen in Biddeford, Maine, for our third episode of Farmers Make It, which is an interactive cooking webinar where we feature some of Maine's best farmed seafood. So, quick intros. We have Chef Matt here with us.
Hi.
We have Farmer Ken. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So let's start with Ken.
Sure.
Hey, Kelp.
I'm Ken Sparta from Spartan Sea Farms in Freeport, Maine. Grow kelp and oysters currently.
Amazing.
I'm Matt Haight. I am the Culinary and Quality Manager at Atlantic Sea Farms.
Awesome. So we have a special treat right away, a visit to the farm with our roving field reporter, Chris Davis. And we're going to cut to some videos so you can see how the kelp is grown on the farm, and then we'll get into our recipe. Actually, before we do that, we're going to talk about what we're going to make today.
All right. Sweet. So today we're going to be making a kelp puttanesca pasta.
All right. Awesome. Now to the video.
So here we are, Chris Davis, your Maine Aquaculture Innovation Kitchen roving field reporter. Today we're out at with Ken Sparta out in Casco Bay. Ken is part of the Maine Sea Farm Family Cooperative, and meet Ken Sparta here, and he's out on his farm. And Ken, tell us, how did you get started?
Well, I was working a job where I was working way too many hours, and I quit and went back to working retail. I was working at Hamilton Marine, and this really big man came in and said, "I hear you're a diver." I said, "Yeah, I'm a diver." And he said, "I need somebody to dive on my oyster farm." So that's the day I met Thomas Henniger. And I went and dove on his oyster farm, and I went for what should have been like a 3 or 4 minute dive just to confirm that everything was sunk the right way.
Yeah.
It was his first year. And I was so amazed by it was slack tide, and the oysters had completely cleaned the water. So I went from 0 visibility when I started to like 20-30 feet.
Oh my gosh.
And it was amazing. And to me it was like an emotional dive.
Yeah.
And I came up out of the water, and Thomas will tell you, before I was even out of the water, I was like, "You are going to teach me how to do this." And we actually took the shared waters course together that year.
Right. That was like 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah, 2019, I think, or 2018. 2018.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that then led to Maine Family Sea Farms.
Yep. So
Tell us about what it's all about.
Maine Family Sea Farm Cooperative. We basically, a bunch of us got together, and we were all we were at various levels of starting out, and there just seemed like so many things that we could share. First of all, we could, talk about kelp and oysters to somebody other than, our significant others, because we knew that we were boring them, and have a beer. So that was good. We call that sharing knowledge.
Yeah.
Right? And we can share gear.
Yeah.
And we also, in a way, provide each other with a little bit of insurance. So if I need to go on vacation, somebody can cover for me. If somebody gets hurt, we can cover for them and make sure that their farms are okay for them and their
If they
families.
need an extra hand for a day, you'll trade back and forth.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely share labor.
Yeah.
And this will be our 3rd year with a shared intern for the co-op.
Fantastic.
So that intern gets to go to all 10 farms.
Yeah. And you started in shellfish. What led you to the kelp farm?
It was very easy. I went to the shared waters course, and part of what I needed to do was make a business plan. And I made a business plan, and I said, "Oh my God, I'm not going to get a paycheck for 3 years. I better try this kelp thing."
Something that grows a little quicker.
Yeah, and I have since completely fallen in love with kelp. It's amazing.
Share.
Right,
love it.
It's even, to me, it's tastier than oysters.
Delicious. Yeah. So tell us about the farm. How you've got, looking down one kelp line, I understand you have quite a few more.
This is one LPA. I have 2 areas over here that are, one that's 6 acres, one that's 3. And then I'm working with my friends at Ocean's Balance down by Cow, and doing some lines for them down there, and they let me have some of their space down there too.
Yeah.
And then there's another couple of LPAs out and about that I work with people on, and The co-op has, well, we're over 5 miles of kelp line this year.
Wow.
In the co-op. So.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
On how many? Just on LPAs?
No, LPAs, experimentals, and mine is a standard.
Yeah.
Which I applied for during that class in 2000.
And how long did it take?
I got it last year. Yeah. But I got it. And,
You got it,
And I'm
yeah.
very happy to move on and
Yeah.
be good with that.
Yeah. Wow. So you'll be harvesting this come late April?
Mid to late, we'll see where Ocean's Balance will be drying this kelp for us. And, we'll have to work into their schedule. One dry or many farms.
Yeah.
So
Right.
We'll
And I
work it
understand you have a new product line coming on with.
Yep. We've got it's a meat substitute. We call it sea veggie meat. And currently we're using it. I have a bar on Main Street in Freeport, and we use it. Were you at the forum on Thursday night? I didn't see you. Okay. We made kelp tacos there, so we do kelp tacos. That's actually one of our happy hour treats.
Yep.
We do a chili. We have a Sunday brunch where we actually make breakfast sausage out of it, and it's phenomenal. And it's mostly kelp, but there's some quinoa and some black beans, and we are going to be producing it right in Brunswick, so it'll be a Maine-made product.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Have you ever tried smoking kelp, having a smoked product?
It's tough to get lit, though, isn't it? Yeah.
I read you.
So smoked kelp is yummy,
Yeah.
and our chef actually smokes all of our salmon and stuff right there at the bar, and,
Yeah.
and she smoked some of the seaweed.
Yeah.
And she actually smoked a bunch of Valeria and uses it as a soup base, which is phenomenal.
I've always
Makes a really
wondered
great stock.
how it would be wrapped around a scallop meat, like instead of bacon,
I think-
smoked kelp wrapped scallops.
I think it would be amazing. I was out hanging out with some Alaska seaweed farmers.
Yeah,
and
farmer to farmer exchange.
Right, and the one of the farmers from Cordova actually puts his stuff into he smokes with ash, and it was a whole room full of people just
Yeah,
like
very cool.
very disappointed when it was all gone. It is, I think, a delicious food.
Well, this is great. We're probably have to head back to Emily in the kitchen, but this is fantastic. Thank you so much, Ken, for having us out on your farm,
Absolutely.
and we'll go back and taste some of this kelp.
All right, now we're back in the kitchen. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you didn't get too seasick out there, a little choppy. So one last thing before we start cooking, if you have any questions, if you're cooking along, feel free to pop your questions in there. There's a Q&A function at the bottom of the screen, and we'll have somebody that can yell your questions to us so we can get them answered.
All right.
All right, let's go, Matt.
Okay, cool. So the first step, something that hoping you might have done ahead of time, it takes a little bit of time, is cutting your eggplant lengthwise and salting it. So by salting it, it'll remove some of the bitterness and excess moisture prior to roasting. And then what I do is I'll take, like a heavy bottom pan over high heat and sear the eggplant for 2 to 3 minutes, and then flip it over, and then I kind of finish it roasting in the oven. So it's like 3/4 of the way cooked, let it cool, and then dice it up. So we've already done that. Hoping you have too.
How long do you salt and leave your eggplant?
I would say you want to do it for at least an hour, and you can do it up to overnight if
Okay.
you wanted to.
Cool.
Yep, you want to make sure you dab it dry before you sear it, so it doesn't get all steamed.
All right,
Cool. I guess first things first, we'll start with knife work.
nice work.
Knife work. All right, cool. Start with an onion. So I'm just gonna do like a small dice. I'm on my fingers, so I'm on my paring knife today.
While you're chopping, should we talk about farming?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Just
Excellent.
Interject when you're on to the next thing.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, how much onion are we doing?
I'm gonna do this whole onion's like a small, medium-sized, just white, yellow onion.
Okay, all right, awesome. So let's talk about the farm.
Let's talk about the farm.
Let's talk, you just learned a little bit about the farm.
Yeah, I was very amused by the video, actually. And thank you, Greg Foot, for letting us use your that skiff. It was perfect.
Yep.
Perfect for the day.
Yep.
So my farm's right in Freeport, but farming is happening all up and down the coast of Maine, and we're growing kelp, and we're hoping that all of you are going to be eating kelp. It's pretty important to us. You know, the kelp that you saw in that shot is actually, I think, the same kelp that we're going to be using, which is sugar kelp.
Yeah.
And that's what's farmed on most farms here in Maine. But we also see skinny kelp, and we also see some winged kelp, which is extra yummy and has a little bit of a smokier, denser flavor. But
What's the difference between sugar kelp and skinny kelp? Is it just skinnier, or does it have different flavors? Or
I think it actually has a sweeter flavor.
yeah.
It also I find it a lot easier to work with because it is that skinny shape. It's the perfect shape for noodles.
Oh. Okay.
So I used to work with a chef that actually used it exclusively for, he had a fish dish and he would actually bake the fish in those and then serve them off to the side as like the side dish.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they're pretty yummy.
All right,
Making a
so
mess
we
over
got.
here. So I'm making a mess over here. I don't have a bench. I don't have a bench scraper either.
It's looking great.
Yeah.
I might try one. No, I'll sit here.
Whatever.
Are we all in the shot here, Sydney? Amazing. Sydney is our back of the house tech support over here. She's doing a fantastic job. So what?
You should have seen her out on the boat.
Yes, she was.
See that solid camera work.
I feel like she had one of those gravity, like anti-gravity.
Yeah,
but
it was
just her.
impressive.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was impressive. So, other species, mostly kelp, but are there any other species being farmed in Maine or like on the horizon?
On the horizon is dulse. I think
Yeah.
we'll see dulse really soon. And I would expect that probably we'll pop into sea lettuce in the next couple of years too, I hope. We'll see.
Yeah, that's really neat. Seasonality. Let's talk a little bit about when you seed your kelp and when you're harvesting and.
Sure. So ideally, I would be seeding in October. Oftentimes it seems like it's December. Sometimes it trails into January. The sooner we can get in the water, the better. Our harvest, we'll start harvesting some direct to consumer or direct to restaurant stuff at the end of March.
Yeah.
But typically we're looking at mid-April to the end of April, sometimes into May for our biggest harvest.
Okay.
So we'll go from harvesting, 5-gallon buckets to 10,000 pounds a day.
Yeah.
So,
Wow.
Yep.
And you're on garlic now.
I'm on garlic. Sorry.
Okay. How many cloves we got?
So I said about 4 cloves. Mine are a little bit small, so I used 5. So we're kind of looking for like tablespoon and a half.
But you can really measure it with your heart
Yeah, that's right.
for garlic.
Yeah, I mean, all measurements are really just kind of guidelines and aren't rules.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So we got.
Cook with your soul.
We've got garlic. What are we doing
Yep.
next?
All right, so next, I'm going to be mincing up some capers and then kind of doing the same thing with the Kalamata olives and Castelvetrano olives.
Talk about Castelvetrano. Vetrana?
Castelvetrano.
Okay. I have never liked green olive before until today. So.
Yeah, they're kind of my favorites. They're a Sicilian green olive. They have like a really rich, buttery texture. Yeah, they look like that. They are kind of the texture of like a black olive, but they have much more of like I said, mild, rich, like fatty taste, flavor on your palate.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yep. I'm usually only Kalamatas. So.
Yeah, well, we got those too.
Highly recommend though for anyone who
Yep.
hasn't tried them yet. Okay, so while you're chopping those up, back to the seasonality.
Okay. Yep.
So winter, over the winter.
Yep.
So
It's all out there growing right now.
it's all out there growing right now, and I think that this is really important because in Maine we have a lot of lobster fishing, and so this is like in the off season of lobster.
Absolutely. So for some lobster fishermen, this is actually additional income. They can go and add kelp into what they grow and diversify their income a little bit, which is fantastic. They have really big boats that they have to pay for. So
Yeah.
that's a wonderful thing. And almost more importantly, the places where we're growing kelp might, in the summertime, we would expect to see lobster traps there a lot of the time. And so we put our stuff in after the lobstermen have left, and after the lobsters have left, more importantly. And then we pull our stuff out of the water after we harvest, and then it's time for the lobstermen to come back. So it works tremendously well together. It's two fisheries that just are
Complement.
perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Let's kind of dive into the next one.
What?
So let's dive into the next one.
Dive into the
All right,
next one.
cool. So I'm just gonna slice the Kalamata olives just to kind of give it like a different shape. Just gonna kind of do like rounds. These ones are pitted already, which is kind of helpful. The Castelvetranos are not, so I'm gonna end up dicing those. Kind of show you a little trick on how to remove the seed, or the pit rather.
Yeah, I need some help with that. I just mushed them apart, which is probably not the.
I mean, you're not far off.
My grandmother used to
Anyway.
my grandmother used to hammer.
Hammer. Does it kind of just pop out?
It's not that pretty, but
Oh.
Yeah.
If you're dicing them anyway, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
nobody messed with Nana. So
All right, so off season, you talked about seeding.
Yes.
So do you want to explain a little bit what seeding kelp is like?
sure, it's magic.
Magic.
Yep. We actually this year, with the help of Greenwave, started our own hatchery. But in the past, I've actually bought kelp seed. Some of it's actually come from Atlantic Sea Farms and UNE and all over the place. But when you're a farmer, you receive your kelp seed on a PVC tube, and it's upholstery twine is wrapped on this PVC tube, and the kelp is already growing on there. And you go out and you put a piece of pot work, the same kind of rope that lobstermen use to haul up their lobster traps with,
Yep.
right down the center of the PVC tube. You attach the little piece of nylon twine, and then you back down the line, and it spins off onto that.
Okay, so
It's
you're
already
wrapping
seeded.
the rope with
Right.
twine.
Right,
to
and
seed the kelp.
that twine already has the little kelplings on it.
Yeah.
And as they start to grow, the holdfasts don't grow just around the twine; they grow around the entire rope. So, when that seed goes from, oh, look, this twine's a little bit brown, to 8-10 feet long,
Yeah.
it hangs right onto that rope, so we can pull it right out of the water and harvest it.
Yeah. So when it's just like brown fuzzy twine, is
Yep.
what it looks like in the
It's
beginning.
brown fuzzy twine, and you hope it's the right brown fuzz.
Yeah. And then it only takes, so from start to finish, it's really how many months is like ideal? 7,
Yeah,
7 months.
6-7 months, and we've got a crop.
And it can grow to 8 feet long.
Yep.
All along those lines.
Yep. And if it's 4 feet long, that's great. If it's 2 feet long, that works.
Is there like a good size, like best for eating? Or is it more of a timing thing?
So actually, all of the farmed kelp is very, very tender compared to wild kelp. So you can chop it up and eat it. And one of the things that's hysterical, you saw it actually happen just for a brief moment while we were on the boat, right?
Yeah.
But when you're out harvesting, you look around about halfway through the day and you realize that everybody's not talking because they're like shoving kelp in their face and eating it. It's that good.
That's awesome. So this is the trick. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you're just kind of smashing it. Same idea, using a hammer, side of the knife, kind of pressing it. Like I said, these are really rich, so they fall apart pretty easily. And then you just kind of pick the pit out and then just do a rough chop over the top.
Okay, so how much olives are we doing here? Each?
Yeah,
Rough
I think-
rough measurement.
Yeah, rough measurements. I think I did about a quarter cup. This might be closer to a half a cup, but I mean, a lot of air in there. Don't worry about that one. Meant to do that.
About a quarter cup of each olive.
Yeah.
and-
Yeah, it's just to kind of play off the brininess of the kelp. I mean, puttanesca traditionally has anchovies in it, and in this case, I'm using kelp puree and our blanched ready-cut kelp to kind of play that like umami, savory seafood note.
Yep.
And then the brininess of the kelp just really pairs nicely with the capers and the olives, so I kind of just bump those up a little bit because I like it.
Yeah. Yep.
That's kind of my
Do you
game there.
Do you want to talk a little bit about where to find kelp or like some of the products? So, or we can actually talk about ASF a little bit if
Sure.
you want.
Yeah.
We were talking about the fishermen diversifying into kelp farming, and that's what ASF focuses on is working with fishermen.
That's right.
So yeah, do you want to talk a little bit about it?
Sure, yeah. So I believe the mother company of Atlantic Sea Farms, Ocean Approved, started in like 2006, something like that. And they started by partnering with lobstermen. I think they had like 1, maybe 2 farmers at the time. Just looking to kind of diversify their income stream a little bit and then just kind of give them something else to do in the winter months. And then and they're just, kind of moving around, maybe doing like 30,000 pounds maximum a year at the time, slowly gathering farmers. And then in 2018, we had like a rebrand, kind of rebranding it to be more of like a consumer-facing company, and that's where Atlantic Sea Farms came along.
Yeah.
And we started to grow our farmer network, and yeah, kind of go from there. And so now we're much bigger. I think we have Liz is gonna kill me. I think we have like 36 farmers now.
It sounds like what I
But,
last heard.
All right, cool. We'll go with that. I think, yeah, 36 farmers. And then last year we pulled 1.3 million pounds out of the water,
Wow.
which is a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. And
Yep.
so then you take that product and and you make it into stuff that people want to eat.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
what are some of the products that you guys have?
Yeah. So once it comes out of the water, geez, I'm missing stuff all over the place. Look at me talking, can't pay attention to what I'm doing. 3 now, geez Louise. Look at me, so much for my trick. Yeah, what was I talking about?
The different products that is.
Oh, right. Yeah, my job.
What do you?
Right. Yeah, my job. Right. Yeah, so yeah, so after it comes out of the water, obviously our job is because we've committed to the farmers to buy back what's coming out of the water. So we've got to figure out how we can process it and sell it to customers, both in a couple different avenues and channels. The ingredient space, so other people can use it as an ingredient at a larger scale. Food service, trying to produce some products that food service channels like universities or I don't know, whatever you can think of that's in the food service restaurant chains.
Yep.
Can use our products and at a larger scale, and then retail, of course, which is the most customer facing. And a couple of our products, our flagships right now, are fermented seaweed line. So we have 3 fermented SKUs right now. We have a fermented seaweed salad, a like seaweed kimchi, it's called sichi, and then a spicy fermented gochujang seaweed salad. And then we also have 3 different flavors of kelp cubes. So we're actually going to be cooking with some of those today. We have just like the regular pureed kelp. We have like a ginger and blueberry kelp cube, and then a cranberry seed kelp cube.
Yeah.
Yep, and then a ginger sesame sea veggie burger, as well as a basil pesto sea veggie burger.
Yeah.
And then there's, of course, the simplest form, which is just kind of blanched and ready to eat, like we call it ready cut kelp. So it's just like a blanched, shredded kelp. We're also gonna be cooking with that today too.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And so some of these, I know you can get some of them at Whole Foods, at where would the other places? We were talking about it earlier.
Yeah.
Is it Heritage City? Do they have?
I'm not sure if they do.
No,
Yeah,
no,
they
yeah.
might
Working on
in
getting
the
them a
future.
refrigerator.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that Whole Foods, some select Hannafords. I think Sopo Seafood, and Harbor Fish Market, and Rosemont.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can get Maine Farm Kelp all year round.
Yes, you can.
You just gotta know where to find it.
Gotta look for it. Come here.
Yes.
Stop by. I'll try. I'll give you some. All right. So we have all of our mise en place things in place, ready to go, and so we're ready to start building. I kind of have the pan kind of slowly heating up here. Can I turn it up a little bit to like a medium heat? I don't want to torch it because I'm cooking with olive oil. Olive oil has a pretty low smoke point, so I don't really want to blast it up. I don't want it to get too bitter on me. So it's about, I don't know, 2 tablespoons. I'm gonna let it kind of heat up a little bit, and I'll start with some of these onions and garlic, and just kind of get them in the pan, season them up, and let them, I don't know, soften, I guess. I don't really know what else to say. Cook is a word.
Cook them.
You can cook them.
Can.
Yep.
So we're making the sauce.
Yep. So we're making the base of the puttanesca sauce. Turn it up just a little bit. This pan cooled down a little bit. And so yeah, just like I said, starting it with onions and garlic, and then we're gonna season it as we go to kind of like layer and build flavors. We'll be adding in the kelp puree next, as well as the olives and capers, and just kind of let that cook down. And deglazing it with wine to help get all the bond off the bottom of the pan. Adding in some more aromatics and tomato sauce, and we'll just kind of let that simmer for a little while.
Yum.
Yeah.
If anybody is cooking along at home, put a little message in the Q&A, because I'm really curious to hear how it's going. All right, so back to kelp talk.
Kelp talk.
Let's talk more about kelp. And if you have any questions about kelp, we have an expert We actually have multiple experts.
Yeah.
in the room, but-
Yeah, we have lots of kelp people in the room.
Expertise. So let's talk about some of the environmental benefits of kelp. Or do you have a topic you want to talk about?
No, environmental benefits are good.
Okay.
But I'd like to make a shout out. If people want to learn more about kelp, there's an event coming up
There's an event.
and everybody should go. It's called Seaweed Week.
Yes.
Ooh.
It's absolutely amazing. And it's going to start off on April 23rd at the Freeport Grange. And we're going to have a seaweed speakeasy,
Ooh.
right? So,
Tell us more.
well, kelp margaritas,
Quietly.
some live music.
Live music.
We don't know what the secret message is we're gonna have a secret word at the door. I'm not gonna tell that yet because
It's
we're
kelp.
still working on it. It's probably kelp.
Oh.
Yeah, I would guess kelp. And if that doesn't work, try Saccharina maybe.
Saccharina.
But that's coming up and that kicks off Seaweed Week. There are all kinds of restaurants and breweries and distilleries all across the state of Maine. If you go online that have all signed up to put something that is kelp forward on their menu. And if what's being made today intrigues you, then you should save your dollars and go out during Seaweed Week to as many different restaurants as you can, support these people and try all that different stuff. I know for one, Oxbow will have a Saison Life Aquatic again. And I suspect that Freeport Oyster Bar might have a couple of things on the menu.
Hot dog somewhere, because that, yeah.
We have a
Hot dog out there. With kelp on top of the hot dog.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
not-
that's-
Not a hot dog made of kelp.
That's on the menu at Freeport Oyster Bar. Actually, it's a standard.
Is it?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, with kelp relish.
Yep. As is we have a question? We have a question?
Woohoo! That's a great question.
I
Yeah.
mean, you guys can both talk about it.
Yeah.
Sure.
You
Oh, yes, they can't hear you. Yes, so the question is, what is the process post-harvest? After you harvest the kelp, how do you get it into these products that they make or you make?
sure.
So, yep.
I'll talk about what we do with our kelp, and then you can talk about the ASF
Yeah.
process, which is different. So almost all of the kelp that I harvest and that my cooperative harvests goes to Ocean Balance, and it gets dried there. So we take it off the boat in these huge bags that are lined with a net bag. We bring them to Ocean's Balance in Brunswick. They have this, they bring them in with a fork truck and they actually grab that net bag and they hang it up and water just streams out of it. And that's the beginning of the drying process. And then they have an enormous dryer that it goes through. It's a belt dryer. So the kelp kind of gets to go on a last journey through the belt and dry off. And then we end up with they take that dried product and make it into a flake. They mill it.
Oh,
And then it gets added into all kinds of different products.
yeah.
So that's the process that our kelp, our sea veggie meat starts with and other things. But ASF actually receives their stuff, the stuff in Portland because I've worked on a couple of partner farms, goes into the fish exchange and is received there. And to me, that's like a magic place where it goes in the door and then I never see it again. So
Yeah. So
the
magic is as Ken stated, the harvest season is relatively short. If you remember, I had mentioned that we did almost 1.3 million pounds last year. That season is, maybe the second week of April through the second week of June. So that's a lot of seaweed coming out of the water. And it's got a very short shelf life. So you got to process or preserve it in some way. And so there's 3 ways you can do that. And we kind of do all 3. One is to freeze it. So some of it will come right out of the water and we will blast freeze that right away. And so then we can preserve it over time and then kind of thaw throughout the year to then process it into products. Another process is fermentation. So we will ferment it to preserve that, turning that into consumable products. And then the third method is also drying. So we will send it off to a dryer and then have that dried and then milled down into other things to sell.
Do you have all of those available to you when you're doing these product designs?
I do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
How long does it take to dry when it goes on its little journey through just curious, do you know?
What I do know is that the guys at Ocean's Balance can crank through, and this is amazing to me, 10,000 pounds a day they can dry.
Yeah.
And it's the belt is the dryer must be 40 feet long, so it's going on a 120-foot journey, but
Yeah,
slowly, and it's quite a machine.
that's a lot. I've seen the pictures. It's
Yep.
massive, massive.
Yep.
It looks like a whole room dryer.
Yep, I was tempted before I actually saw it to go for a ride down the belt, but I've decided not to do that.
Well, it's the
Yep.
best.
Yeah.
So we've got here, what we got it in the kelp, we got it in the
Yeah.
olives.
Yeah, I kind of just jumped ahead here on you. So yeah, after the onions and garlic started to get a little translucent, I really like to cook with my senses a lot. So as you can hear right now, I don't know if you guys can hear, but the water is starting to cook out. So that means some of the stuff is going to come down, start to caramelize on the bottom. I could tell that by the color of the onions and the garlic were changing to a little bit of like a translucent brown, that they were releasing enough moisture and starting to change their flavor and texture that I wanted. I then added some of the olives, and then I added some of the kelp puree. Originally, the recipe called for just 2 of those cubes, but I know that people like kelp here, so I upped it to 4. Because again, guidelines, not rules. And as you can see, it's starting to stick to the pan a little bit. That's all right. That's kind of what I'm looking for. I'm going to be using that white wine to deglaze the pan to get kind of all the flavor that's kind of caramelizing on the bottom back up and into the sauce. Just going to kind of let that do its thing for like another minute. Again, just kind of listening to hear if it turns from like a sizzle bubble to like more of like a fry. And then I'll start to deglaze.
I wish you could smell how it smells in here, because it's starting to smell really, really great. We have another question.
You provide fresh kelp to chefs earlier in the winter/spring rather than typical April harvest, or not?
Do you provide fresh kelp earlier in the season, earlier in the winter to chefs, like before harvest?
I have in the past. It all depends on how early we can start cutting. So if we have a chef that really wants to work with it, so we can cut the kelp in such a way that it grows back. And that's how I prefer to cut it when we do direct to consumer or direct to restaurant.
Like a
pruning.
haircut.
Like pruning.
Exactly.
Pruning.
But if somebody wants something really early and they have an idea that they need to try out or that they really want to try out, and it encourages people to work with kelp and eat kelp, I will go and strip some of my line for them. So if you're a chef and you want some kelp, give me a shout.
And also, we were talking about this earlier, if you're a consumer and you want fresh kelp,
Yeah,
you can find a kelp farmer.
absolutely. Find your local kelp farmer. If you can't find your local kelp farmer, you could reach out to Sea Grant, or you could reach out to Freeport Oyster Bar, and we'll find somebody that will work with you.
Amazing. All right, we've got the wine in there.
Yep, so I just deglazed the pan. It was starting to caramelize on the bottom. Now I'm just going to kind of let this I turn the heat up a little bit to cook out the alcohol. I'm going to kind of reduce this down to the point where it's almost gone. And then I'll add in the tomatoes and then turn it down a little bit and let it simmer.
Okay, how much wine do we have added here?
I think this is like, I don't know, what is this, 8 ounces?
8
Like,
ounces.
I don't know. I have no idea. I did half of that. So like
Okay.
half a cup?
Yeah, that sounds good. That
Yeah.
sounds right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Great vintage on that Sutter home.
Sutter home.
Yeah.
Fine here. Doesn't
Fine,
have- it
it's
doesn't
fine.
have a year on it, actually. It doesn't even have a year.
All
Okay,
right.
so how long are we doing this for?
Yeah, again, like I said, I like to cook with my senses. So like I said, I'm looking to reduce the wine till it's almost gone. So I want all the flavor in there. I want a little bit of that acidity, but I don't want the alcohol. The alcohol will cook off quicker than the rest of the moisture. I'm seeing that's bubbling. I'm gonna turn that heat down because the liquid is almost gone to about like a low, medium low.
Yep.
And then I'm gonna add my tomato sauce. This is just crushed San Marzano tomatoes. I like to get them whole and crush them just because I think they taste better that way. And I kind of like a little bit more chunky.
Just put it in a food processor.
Yeah, I threw it in a food processor and just kind of buzzed it for like 1-2 seconds just to kind of break it all the way up.
I do that for pizzas too.
Yeah,
Just for
it's a pro move.
Oh,
Pro move.
okay.
Then I'm also going to add a bay leaf for some aromatics and a little bit of thyme. Mix it all together, kind of bring that right back up to a brisk simmer.
Brisk simmer.
Brisk simmer.
Okay, so that it looks
Small,
like
small,
little bubbles?
small, yeah, small little bubbles, just kind of going, reducing down. We're gonna look to reduce this sauce down by about half, and then just let all the flavors kind of blend together. And this will normally take anywhere from like, I don't know, 20 to 40 minutes, but we'll probably speed this up a little bit just for the sake of time.
Okay. All right, it's smelling really good. It's looking really good. We can talk more about, we can get back to our environment.
Smells amazing.
It does really smell
Yep.
amazing. Like super hungry right
Yep.
now. So environmental benefits, we want to get into that?
Yeah, that's actually, so environmental benefits is actually what led me to aquaculture in the first place. You know, that it goes back to that story on the boat, right? I could actually visually see the oysters filtering the water. And kelp has its own wonderful properties. The one that's most important to me is that it reduces the pH in the water, so it helps fight acidity in the water, and that's something that's a problem out there now. But the fact that we are pulling carbon and nitrogen out of the water, and if we've got too much of it in there, is a big deal. Now, it doesn't sequester carbon. Everybody asks, but no, because we eat it. So it's not sequestered once we eat it, right? But at least it's no longer in the ocean.
Yeah.
And to me, I think there's going to be other environmental benefits that we will probably tackle later on. I think, you know, probably the best breakwater we will ever build will be built out of kelp.
Yeah.
Someday we'll be putting kelp parallel to all these beaches that are eroding, and it'll be making a world of difference. But for now, we've got some great stuff going on.
Yeah, we're getting started.
Yeah.
Is there any like co-growing happening with, you know, you said it
Oh, yeah.
helps with the ocean acidification, which can be really bad for shellfish.
Yeah, like lobsters. I think you did a little cooking thing about kelp. No, you did a cooking thing about mussels.
Mussels,
With-
oysters.
So Matt Murdy's growing kelp right around all of his mussels.
Yeah.
And it's going to help those shells. I grow it around my oysters, and it's something that we, you know, it's an easy chat to have with somebody who's growing shellfish. That maybe they should plant some
Yeah.
kelp around it. It's
Yeah.
a
so
fun
there are
crop to work with
benefits.
and very beneficial for the crop.
Not that you just happen to be growing shellfish and seaweed. It's
No,
helps.
it works together.
It works.
Ah.
together. Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. So there's also health benefits. Do we want to talk a little bit about? I'm not an expert in this area.
That stuff's healthy.
It's
what
a
Popeye
mouthful.
Popeye shouldn't have been eating spinach, right? When he got ticked off with Bluto, it should have been like a
Kelp.
can of kelp that he
Can of
popped out
kelp.
of his pocket. But
Maybe that's the next product.
can of kelp,
Can of kelp.
Popeye's kelp.
Maybe next idea.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. I mean, how do we want to get into specifics? Or?
There's a number of minerals that are just that we don't get in other ways. It's a healthy way to get for the body to get iodine, and we don't have many of those in our diet.
Yeah, iodine's a big one. A lot of people are kind of iodine deficient without them knowing it. And so iodine coming from the ocean, shellfish is a big one, but kelp is just jam-packed full of it. Also high in magnesium and what else? Potassium and a couple other things I can't remember.
Yeah.
Vitamin D. Right, isn't that one? Vitamin D.
One of the vitamins.
Hey.
Sounds right.
Hey.
One of them.
Hey. One of those
Probably
letters.
not vitamin D.
Yeah,
I think that's
yeah.
the sun, but I don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. I get that from kelp farming. Yes.
There you go.
Yes. Vitamin D from the sun.
Nice.
Yeah. So if you were a regular person like me, and you want to eat more kelp in your diet, earlier we were chatting about different ways you can eat more seaweed.
Yep.
And one of those, like the kelp cubes.
Yep.
We're talking about putting it in a smoothie, or what are the other? I mean, you want to talk about some of the ways you cook with kelp?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So the recipe I chose today, I was looking to make something that might be a little user-friendly. Ingredients aren't too foreign, and really easy to build, relatively quick to make. But some of my favorite ways to use kelp, the ready-cut blanched kelp and the kelp cubes are just like in its kind of purest form, so it's like a blank canvas. And you can really use the ready-cut similar to any way you'd want to use like a green leafy green, like a spinach or a kale. Get a lot of similar benefits, but it doesn't wilt as much, so it holds a nice structure, so you have great texture. So that's a really easy like one-for-one sub-out plug and play. And then if you're looking to maybe make something completely plant-based, like say trying to cook like Thai, and instead of using fish sauce, you're looking for a way to get that like umami funk in it in a way.
Yeah.
I like to use the kelp puree at a little bit more of than a 1-to-1 sub out for fish sauce, almost like a 2-to-1, and you really get kind of that same umami backbone.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
How do you like to eat kelp? I mean, I know you like the tacos.
Yep, tacos are really good. I actually take my grandmother's veggie lasagna recipe,
Yep.
and instead of spinach, Popeye, just sub that out with kelp, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
I drink a fair amount of it at the bar, which is a wonderful thing.
We'll get into
But
that later.
yeah. I have a kelp flatbread recipe that's excellent. And actually, I take my zucchini bread recipe and sub in kelp, and it's
Yeah.
delicious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I made a rosemary potato bread with kelp as the hydration element, as well as seasoning it with kelp powder afterwards.
Nice.
The bread was green, and it was awesome.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, weirdly
St.
enough.
Patrick's Day is coming up.
Yeah, right. Oh, it's a good idea.
Green bread.
Green bread. Yeah, weirdly enough, rosemary and kelp goes well together. Rosemary and seafood usually don't.
Yep.
But rosemary is a really big flavor. Kelp can sometimes be a really big flavor, especially in its dehydrated form because it's concentrated.
Yeah.
So they will either clash a lot or you get a perfect marriage because they can really stand up to one another.
Yeah.
So it's
yeah.
kind of cool.
If you have any, we have some audience members here. If you guys have any questions or topics you want to cover, feel free to shout out a question. Are we good with the
Or
chat?
any answers
Or any
to the
answers?
questions that
If
we've
we're
had.
missing anything.
Yeah. You know
Oh,
about the health benefits.
What's that?
Nothing. So you know more about the minerals inside because I forget everything I've ever known. All right. All right. So my water is just coming up to a boil now. I have bucatini pasta. It's like a form of spaghetti. It's got a little hole in the middle. It's great for this type of sauce. So you can really get the sauce like right into the pasta, and it'll just be a really good bite. So in she goes. It's going to be about, I don't know, 8 to 10 minutes. It's kind of, again, cook it till it's done. I like mine a little bit undercooked, and then
Al dente.
al dente. Yep. And I'll add it directly into the pan once it's right there, and they'll kind of finish up in the pan with the sauce as it's simmering.
Would you put like Parmesan cheese on top of this? Is this that type of situation?
You totally could. I personally don't. It's an optional thing.
Yeah.
I prefer more of like a citrus element, so I'll be finishing it with some lemon zest.
Oh,
Nice.
delicious.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of get some more of the brightness because this is just kind of jam packed with umami now with the kelp and the kelp puree, and then all of the brininess. So a little bit of lemon juice to help brighten it up.
So the eggplant and the kelp ready cut go in at the end?
At the end, yep, because the eggplant's already cooked. I don't want it to get too mushy, and
Yeah.
the kelp is already blanched and cooked. So you're just kind of folding it in the end to
Yeah.
kind of keep its structure. And then I'll add a little bit of parsley in at the end when I add those ingredients, and then a little bit of parsley on top to garnish.
Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, we can talk a little bit more about farming. Ken's like, yes.
Yeah, sure. Let's talk more about farming.
I want to know like I know you probably have like busy times.
Sure.
You know, you have like, I'm assuming seeding is busy.
Yeah, so, season on the kelp farm, we start out with seeding. And that is, seeding is delicate work. We need to have usually we're out there early in the morning and we're trying to get out there when there's no wind. And that's very busy. It's day after day after day until this year 5 miles is seeded.
How many days does that take? That's a lot of miles.
Yeah, I think we did like 5.5 days this year.
Yeah.
It probably is a little bit more if you include, some of the farms hadn't been built yet, so we had to put in moorings and things like that.
Okay.
But that's a very busy time. And then if everything goes well, between then and April, it's just a lovely day or two on the boat inspecting lines. So it's pretty social. We show up with coffee, we drive around on a boat, and sometimes everything goes great. Other times we go out there and there's an entire tree tangled in the line, or this year was a colder year and we had some big chunks of ice that came through and
Yeah.
moved lines and tangled lines, and we had to straighten them out. But usually we go out there and we might have a line or two that we will tension or maybe add a buoy to or add weights to. But it's more of a boat ride than it is hard work.
Yeah.
Oysters, when you go and you work on your oyster farm, you're doing something.
Yeah.
Lots of times with kelp, you're just observing,
Yeah.
which is great. Maybe that's why I like it more. And then we come to harvest, and harvest is a lot. You guys had, what did you say, 1.3 last year?
Just shy of, yeah.
Yeah. Million pounds. That's more than you can comprehend, right?
Yeah.
That's
And-
a lot.
What does
and-
it look like? Like, How many tractor trailer trucks is this?
So let's
This is
see.
just a guesstimate. I'm just
We can
curious.
fit about 10 pallets in a truck at a time. Each pallet's 1,000 pounds. So that's 10,000 pounds per truckload, and we did 1.3 million pounds.
That's a lot of trucks.
A lot of trucks.
Wow.
A couple
okay.
2-tree trucks.
Oh, we have a question.
What are the biggest challenges you face in a growing season?
What are the biggest challenges you face in a growing season?
The biggest challenge, well, there are some things that we can't really deal with, but it's mostly things that get thrown at us like weather, or sometimes somebody will be out in their boat and not realize that they're driving through a kelp farm and get tangled up, and then we have to go out and fix that. You know, it's mostly fixing things. So we go out and if you can imagine 5 miles of rope, sometimes a little bit of it gets tangled. That's just part of what we do.
Yep.
But that's the toughest thing. And then during harvest, there's lots of logistic challenges. You know, 10,000 pounds to 12,000 pounds per truck, and you're loading them into those trucks, and you're dealing with, you know, a working waterfront that's getting kind of aged and could use some work, and, you know, lifts break and people break and boats break and trailers break and trucks break, and it's to the point where we just expect it, and we have backup trucks and backup people and backup lifts. And I actually just found a guy with a crane truck today that is our backup for the Freeport lift.
Nice.
So
let's talk a little bit about working waterfronts.
I would love to, but first we have a question from.
We have another question. You've all been a fantastic
Oh,
audience.
wow.
2 questions.
First question, do you take volunteers during the harvest?
Do you take volunteers during the harvest season?
I would take volunteers during the early harvest season when we're doing direct to consumer stuff. And, you know, out on my 23-foot boat, which is bigger than the boat that we were on in that video. When we go out and we're harvesting for weight, you know, we've got a powered cutter and some other stuff, and it's not that it's dangerous, but you have to be aware of everything that's going on, and if it's not a good place to be green. But if you want to come out and do that, you can. If you want to come out on one of those days when we're out driving around on the boat drinking coffee, you could do that too.
Sounds like a nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, a nice volunteer opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next question.
You have to bring the coffee.
Okay. Fair.
Yeah.
What do you guys see as the biggest challenge or thing that needs to happen to, one, grow kelp use in home cooking?
I'm gonna have a hard time repeating this because it's so long. Let me repeat half of it first. What's the first part?
Biggest challenge to increase the kelp use in home cooking first,
What's the biggest challenge to increase kelp in home cooking
and kelp use in restaurants?
and kelp use in restaurants? Great question.
I didn't hear it.
Yeah. So the big challenge to increasing kelp use in cooking,
Okay.
both at home and in restaurants.
Okay. I think it's just, it can sometimes be an intimidating ingredient. I know that before I came here, I'd only ever worked with dried kombu. And so getting it and using it fresh is just so foreign to some people. So it's mostly just like doing things like this, where we can do like cooking demos and show that it's really not that scary to work with, and it's really delicious and really easy. And yeah, just getting people to try it and not be afraid because it's different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's true too. I mean, that's the thing with seafood too, right? Some people are afraid to cook seafood at home, and you shouldn't be. You know, seafood is relatively easy to work with. This stuff is tremendously easy to work with. As I said, you know, like I'm not a cook. I know a lot more about eating than I know about cooking. But you know, I'm making a lasagna. There's no difference between using kelp and using spinach. It's the same thing. It's just a different ingredient. And it is delicious, and your results will be just amazing. It adds a lot of depth of flavor.
Yeah. Yeah. So getting people more comfortable. And then, I mean, there's a lot of things going on at the same time. It's like having it more available, but people need to be comfortable and buy it for it to be more available. So it's kind of like all of these things happening at the same time.
Yep.
Having infrastructure
Yep.
to process.
Working waterfront to harvest, it's all there. But this is actually, so like the smell that's coming off the stove right now, and I've seen this at the bar, when somebody orders an order of kelp tacos, everybody is like looking, trying to figure out what the new smell is in the room because it's amazing. The smell is amazing and the flavor is amazing and the taste is amazing. So once people are introduced to it, it's just introducing them to it. They won't be able to stop.
Yeah. We need to do more
Yeah.
cooking demos.
Yeah.
We'll do. That's the mission.
Sounds good.
Any more questions? Are we good for now? How are we doing on time? 10 minutes left.
Cool.
That seems like, what do we got left going on over here?
I'm just finishing pasta. That should be done in like 3 to 4 minutes, and then plating it and eating it, I guess.
Do we want to take a quick break for a guest recipe? We have a bonus recipe for you today. With us, one of our audience members has a fantastic little recipe for kelp margaritas. Oh, sorry, I just tapped my mic because that was really loud. This is Allie. Hello, everybody. Oh, I'll stand next to you for microphone purposes.
So I was just bringing this today so everybody could enjoy kelp on top of kelp, but I will explain to you how I make it. So this is already batched up, beautiful and green. The green color comes from the kelp tequila, but it also comes from lime juice. When you're making a kelp margarita, you really want to use like a nice lime juice. So you either want to squeeze the limes yourself, or Natalie is an awesome brand that we use at the bar. We have some kelp salt.
How do you make kelp salt? Is it just dry kelp?
Salt is just dried salt mixed, or dried kelp mixed in with flake salt.
Yum.
Super easy to make. And then we have our kelp powder here that goes into the kelp salt, but also when we are shaking this in a tin at the bar, we just add a little bit of a shaker into the tin before we shake it. So you kind of have like these little green things floating around in the glass when you serve it. If you shake your margarita properly, you'll have like a little bit of froth on the top. We always just do a little bit on the top as well for, extra effect. Not necessarily needed, but yeah, so this is
Tequila infused with kelp.
yeah. So actually we use Atlantic Sea Farms ready cut kelp. We take about a half cup and we put it in a quart container with a bottle of vodka. Cheap vodka is the best, or tequila, sorry. Tequila, yeah.
Well, we actually
You do that too.
Yeah, for our Bloody Marys, but yeah, cheap tequila is the best tequila because anytime you're infusing alcohol, you're adding that extra flavor, so you don't need to buy anything.
That's fantastic news.
You're changing the flavor. So this is truly just a basic traditional margarita, but with some added kelp in it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Bonus. All right, let's get this going on here. And then what are we doing over here? We're wrapping up our
Yeah.
sauce.
So I did a couple of things while you guys are talking margaritas. Excuse me. I pulled out the bay leaf because it's just done its job already.
Don't eat the baby.
I mean, you can, but you probably don't want to. It's pretty fibrous. But I also added some of the pasta water directly to the sauce. The pasta water has a bunch of the flour starch from the pasta, so it'll help to thicken the sauce and help coat the pasta once it goes in. Just kind of bringing the sauce back together so it's not broken. I did
water.
I did like 2 quarter ladles, so a half a ladle.
Very precise here.
Very precise. Again, you just do it till it comes together. So before you can kind of see that the oil and the tomato sauce was kind of like separated, and the flour from the pasta is kind of helped it bring together so it's like a tighter sauce.
Yeah, this looks amazing. Do you want to, Sydney, can you see this? Should we get this? Here, this
Sure.
is coming, right?
Oh, how's the back of my head look?
Got a nice sauce shop here.
Yeah.
So we're gonna wait on the pasta. We're gonna,
Almost there.
I'm gonna plate up.
Yeah, I'm gonna check this pasta. This should be like right there. Feels like it is. And I'm gonna toss in the eggplant and the kelp to start heating that up, and then the pasta will go in next.
But this can cook for longer. What's like the best length of time? Like if you had all day and you were just kind of like.
Probably don't want to. You don't need to go all day, but I mean, I like to taste as I go. So another thing I did off camera was I tasted it. It was a little bit acidic for me. These tomatoes were a little bit more acidic than I was anticipating. So I grabbed a little bit of sugar, add a little sugar in there. So that's not in the recipe, but adjust the taste.
Pro tip.
And so, yeah, just kind of taste as you go. The flavors will develop, but over time, you'll kind of hit that like plateau. And so I would say maybe 45 minutes to an hour. But I mean, we're doing this probably start to finish in a full hour. But the cooking portion was probably about half an hour.
Yeah,
Not too bad.
awesome.
Okay, I'm gonna go do what I said I was gonna do.
Yeah, add it up, we'll watch. Question about the tequila, we have an audience question.
How long do you infuse it through?
How long do you infuse the tequila with the kelp?
So that's-
Oh, my God.
So that's up for interpretation. We do 24 to 48 hours in the bar.
Thank you, sir.
If you want to leave it in there.
How could you tell I was thirsty?
When there's time for, we can put it on the one.
Let's put it on a little longer, give it more kelp flavor.
Yeah.
Great question. Awesome. I'm very excited about all of this. These options we'll have. Not looking amazing. We have another question. Oh, look at this.
So okay, so first question, does Atlantic Sea Farm expect more than 100 million pounds?
Does Atlantic Sea Farm expect more than 1.3 million pounds?
No, not this year. Last year we kind of bit off more than we could chew, so we had to dial it back just a little bit. So I'm not sure what we're anticipating for this year, but we only want to be able to keep our farmers happy as well as produce as much as our demand. So we're down back just a scope. Just a scope.
All right,
It's a real term.
one more question.
If you freeze this, ready
If you freeze this for use, do you have the eggplant and kelp later on or before you freeze it? And we'll let, you know what, Matt can get steam burned over there.
Yeah, those are the worst. Yeah, so it's a really good question. I would prefer to make the sauce, freeze the sauce, and do the eggplant and kelp the day you want to eat it. So you'd pull the sauce out, thaw it, and then do your eggplant and yes, bigger boat. I need a bigger boat.
You're gonna go.
Need a bigger boat.
I'm gonna taste this now. Is everybody tasting this already? Wow. Can I get this at the resort oyster bar anytime? Tomorrow. This is wonderful. I'm gonna have a warm clip.
I like how you're using two hands.
I don't know why I was
Yeah,
holding it
yeah.
like that.
It's a very heavy drink.
It's very heavy. This is looking amazing. Now we got the bigger
Yeah, I
bowl.
got a bigger boat.
What kind of pasta are you using here?
Bucatini.
Does it have a hole in the middle?
It does.
Bucatini. It's the hollow. Really into different pasta styles.
Yeah, it's good for this type of dish. Like I said, the hole in the middle will help kind of capture the sauce. You'll get much of a I don't know, a better, fuller bite.
Yeah,
And it's just bigger, and
Yeah.
big pasta's cool.
it does look very dramatic. Here, will you hold it up so our audience can see how it looks? Looks
Sure.
amazing. Yeah.
With the back of the headshot? No.
Oh, yeah. All right, well, unless we have any other questions from, I'll give it like 30 seconds. If we have any other questions from our audience, we'll probably wrap here. Actually, we should play one.
Okay, I'll play one.
We should play one.
Let's play one.
But can't finish the cooking demo without
Yeah,
the final plate
that's right.
with the lemon, yeah, and the lemon zest.
The
We
lemon
can't
zest.
leave that out.
Emilio Lemons Estevez.
Okay, let me move this. Go. Okay. Yep. That looks amazing. We're coming into the summer, there could be fresh eggplant from a Maine farm with your fresh Maine kelp, but freshly frozen Maine kelp.
This could be your dinner every Thursday night all summer,
It could be.
Could be.
and you would not be sad.
No.
I'm gonna add a little bit more olive oil, just because fat is king. It's gonna help cut some of the acidity and just make it a little bit richer.
Richer is better.
Richer is nice. And a little bit of parsley. That's not where that goes. And then a little bit of lemon zest. And who wants the first one?
Some of our audience, actually, do you want, Ken? Me?
You, yes, absolutely.
You.
Okay,
you.
it'll be me.
Okay, we'll get this out of your way.
Oyster on the
Then
first
do it.
one.
You're up.
Yep.
I need a fork.
So you can't- that's part of the tradition with kelp food. We don't use forks.
I'll be doing a whole bunch more. Don't worry, you can get one of those.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're good. You're good.
Too late.
Was that really what it was about? Taking a picture? Okay, now I'm gonna struggle with it. Drink the drink with two hands and struggle with a fork. I'm just gonna have to do this. This whole thing is mine. I'm gonna do the rest.
Great. Great.
All right, thank you so much, Matt.
Yeah,
Thank
my
you,
pleasure.
Ken, for being
Absolutely.
here. Thank you for all for tuning in. And our next episode
Thanks, you
will be
guys.
in May, so keep an eye out. We are featuring Maine farm salmon. So we'll see you then.